Hello, hello, and welcome to Full Send with Abuga. Today we have Chris McBride. Chris, how you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. It's been pretty good here. We're in the middle of our winter, but it's sunny in Seattle, so unusual.
Nice. Thank you for making time for us, man. Is it raining a lot there, snowing a lot, or not really?
Uh, Usually, but not this year. We have
Yeah,
almost no snow in the mountains. It's not very good. We have
yeah.
a ski resort close to us that has like four separate areas, and one's open. It's been it's been like hovering right around freezing, so it just
Yeah.
hasn't been that great. Um,
Are
It's
you,
been it's been nice down here, but not nice up in the mountains.
damn, that's pretty interesting because all I've been hearing is how much snow there's been in like a lot of the other places in the US. So that's pretty
Yeah, I think what's
interesting.
interesting is I think the Pacific Northwest has a slightly different weather pattern than the rest of the country.
Yeah,
If it's colder everywhere else, it's warmer here, and if it's warmer everywhere else, it's colder here. But
yeah,
we've just been having I don't want to say it's a miserable winter. It's been, like I said, it's been nice down here, but
yeah,
not good as far as snow goes.
yeah.
Um, and the worst part about it, right at the beginning of the winter, back in December, we got a dump of snow, and then it rained and it flooded. It made
Damn.
big news around the everywhere, and it
Yeah,
basically just washed all the snow away. So it
damn.
hasn't been good. Not good. Not good for the skiers.
Yeah. But good for skating, good for luging.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. When I first got into luging, I started about this time. I started in the winter,
Yeah.
and I was so excited to go out. And it was that year, this was a long time ago now, we basically set the number of days a record for rain in a row. And it was just like,
Damn.
it was so miserable. And then it would be nice in the middle of the week. Like today is Wednesday, nice out, and then it would
Yeah.
rain on the weekend. And months and months and
Depressing.
months went by. Yeah.
Yeah. Just that's that's pure pain right there, man.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I swear you have to you basically have the most interesting room out of everyone I've interviewed so far. Like there's so much personality and character there. Like you have so many boards in the background and like wheels and stuff. And like the
Yeah.
arcade.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the arcade stuff is pretty cool, man.
So we'll start off with like, let's see, where's that? Right
Yeah.
here. This here is my butt board. I raced on that for 20 years. Most of
Nice.
the white, you can't really see it, but most of the white on here are tech stickers. Um, the boards on the outside of it are just
Yeah.
um, these are trophy boards. I've never been ridden them. They're all through. A couple of them are Mary Hill, and actually, I
Nice.
think they're all Mary Hill boards.
Yeah.
Um, this board right here is actually a trophy board, like literally board I got for second place in Eastbourne. Um, and then, of course, you can see these are all um, water bottles for Mary Hill. It's the
Nice.
common thing that Mary Hill does is because it gets pretty hot down there, especially in the summer. It'll be 40 degrees at some 40 degrees Celsius,
Great. That's a
and
lot.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so the big thing is water bottles, and Mary Hill is 3.5, 4 hours from my house, so I try to make it. I try to go all the time, um,
Yeah.
and yeah. So just a few of the things that are up there.
Nice, man. Do you do any like organizing with Maryhill? Or is that like Mary Hill Rats is a whole it's a whole
Mary Hill Rex is a
yeah,
whole nother ball of wax.
yeah,
I've had a history with Mary Hill. A good friend of mine, Curtis Head,
hmm,
somebody you probably should have on your show one of these days.
yeah,
Curtis Head is an old school luger. He raced in the X Games, and he's one of the guys who taught me how to luge. And he's the one who found the hill back
yeah,
at the turn of the century. And I would have been one of the ones riding on it, one of the first guys riding on it. But I had a business trip that weekend. Um, and then we worked, or Curtis Head worked with Biker Sherlock and EDI to put on the
hmm,
first couple races, and that happened to coincide with a big race in Europe that I went to. So I missed those races.
Yeah.
And then the next couple races that came on were stand-up only. And then John Osmond started with Maryhill. And not long after John Osmond got into it, Dean got into organizing free rides there. And that's just been a big mainstay of our culture for the last 15 years now. I think he started in 2009 with the World Wars, and then switched to doing 3 and 4 races, 3 and 4 free rides a year.
Yeah.
When Maryhill quit, I stepped in and did Maryhill Windwalk. That was my first foray into organizing, and it just I thought it was successful. I had my first time I had a lot of problems, but the next year we just didn't get enough riders, and so we ended up canceling it. And then Dino kind of stepped in and he started putting on what is it called, I don't even know what it's called nowadays, but he started doing the free ride / race that we have nowadays.
Yeah. So was that like, you said that was your first step into organizing stuff? Like, how has that evolved since then? Because I think you're involved with the WGSF. Were you involved with the IDF? Like what's it been like?
Right. So just a little bit of history there. I did the Maryhill Windwalk, and I started working with a group of people to try to create, such as what we have today with the WDSC. I had 4 or 5 races around the world that we were going to try to create a series for, and things just kind of fell apart. One of the guys that I was talking to, he ended up losing his race. I ended up not doing my race, and it just the whole thing fell apart. And so I kind of went back to racing and focusing on racing. And at the end of 2019, IDF came and they asked me to join the board because one of the other board members stepped down. And so, I'm getting older, and it's getting harder to compete. And so, kind of move into more of the organizing, and running an event yourself is really hard. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and so an IDF asked me to join. I said, hey, why not? It's keeps me involved, and WDSC Salim actually contacted us like right before they joined the IDF, and in fact my first meeting, our first board meeting, I think we talked to him, and then we were
when was that?
This was beginning of 2020. So this was January of 2020. We had I think my first board meeting with IDF, and I officially joined I think in February. And things were great. Slim was actually talking to a big $1 million sponsor. He was going to put together what Slim does, for the people who don't understand. He runs case production and race marketing and management, and he manages a couple other sports. And at the time, he had parkour, and he was going to try to put together this event with 4 or 5 sports with us as one of the sports, and parkour, and I don't know what else he was going to do. And on Monday or Tuesday, he was going to, and this was in March, he had a big meeting set up with a sponsor. Well, the Wednesday before, basically the world shut down.
Yeah.
And because of COVID. And so it was just, bad timing all around for everything. Yeah. So we took a step back, and we essentially took the year to go to the contract with Slim, and it took us a while, and we weren't in a big rush because of COVID, and but we talked to a bunch of lawyers, and we thought it was a good deal. And at the end of the year, we finally had hashed out a good contract. But IDF was set up to be this democratic organization, where every 2 years the board got elected by the membership. So, and that happened the following January. So I had been a board member for less than a year at this point, and we ran the elections. And what happened was, I was one of the only, there's 2 or 3 of us out of the 7 members who were going to stay, who ran for the next year. And so we decided, we kind of hashed out like I said, it was the end of December. We had hashed out the contract. It was a 5-year contract. And so we decided it wasn't fair to sign a contract right before like a new board came on.
Yeah.
So we talked to Slim about it. He agreed. And, so we didn't sign the contract. And basically the new board came on. It was a completely new board. Like I didn't get in. The only reason we had changed the rules so that we had to have a person from every continent. And so all the new guys were all from America. So that, we ended up, I can't remember who it was now. We had a couple of people stay on.
Yeah.
But the new board said, hey, we don't need this. We don't need someone. We could do a better job. And so, they told him to get lost.
Crazy move. Yeah.
Yeah. And at that time, I was already talking to Will about, because we weren't happy with the new board. We knew they didn't like Street Luge.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about trying to maybe create our own Street Luge federation.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks after the new board takes over, Slim contacted me and said, hey, I'm still interested in doing this. These guys aren't interested. I was like, hey, I know a bunch of people. We can get races. Let's do this. Mm-hmm. And so, that year this was 2021, I guess, at this point. And we, Will and I went and created essentially a nonprofit organization, WDSF, which is, World Gravity Sports Federation. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it's the federation. It's supposed to run the rules and, be the body behind the sport. If you kind of look at F1, you have, what is it? FIA is
the FIA.
It's the Automobile Federation, and they're the sport. They run the race, but then F1 is like the promoter.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we ended up doing. That's what WDSC and WGSF is. WDSC is kind of like F1, and WGSF is kind of like FIA.
Mm-hmm.
That year we were going to run this. We were calling it a fake event, a fake race, because we were still having COVID issues, and we were talking about getting 8 or 10 guys together because we had no content. We needed to get started with something, and we were talking about putting together a 3-race series in England over like a week. We do like 2 days here, 2 days there, and 2 days there. And that way we can do our 2-week bubble and kind of stay with the COVID rules and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we had this all planned out. We had a couple races or a couple locations planned out, and then things got bad in England again. Summertime came, and so that shelved all that stuff. But basically what happened is we stuck with Slim. We kept working on it, and then in 2022, we hooked up with Hansa, with Kazakov, and with Ricardo at TST, and we basically came in and filmed the event. I think I ran the timing at Kazakov, and we came in as acted as race directors and filmed the events, and that's how we got started. We can get more into the history at that point, but I think that's kind of where a good end point for now.
Yeah, nice. So so you said the WGSF is the people who run the races, right? So you guys, when you say run the races, is that just like doing the timing, marshalling?
Yeah. What we do behind the scenes, like what we're doing right now, is we're building the schedule. We work closely with Slim on building the schedule. Before the races happen, we'll send somebody out to go check the course out. We do a site visit. Last year I went to a couple places, and Will went to a couple places, and then we'll put together a safety report on. Put together a safety report on how to build the course and what needs to be protected, and do we need to make changes to the road? Unfortunately, it's backfired on us a couple times. Get into that later, but So these are all the things that we do in quote unquote off season. We make changes to the rules, and then when the race day comes along, we go out there. For late last year, we brought in Khalil to be our safety coordinator, and we help build the course, make sure the hay bales are where we want them, and then our goal is to try to make the course as safe as possible. And then on race day, actually race weekend, we help run the race. So we have, we'll have our clerk of the course at the top of the hill, guiding traffic and making sure the road is clear of traffic. And, we have our starter. The starter is a WDSF employee. We're bringing in a couple of people in this year to try to be more consistent with our starting. Right now, I'm running the timing at the bottom. And we're looking at bringing in somebody to help run our protests and try to move away from the riders having to do protests. And, so that's another thing we're going to bring in this year. So, if everything works out, I think this year we'll have WGSF itself will have 5 or 6 people on staff at the events to help run the events. Nice. As we get more money involved in the sport, I hope to bring in like a coordinator to run the marshals and take some of that, because right now that's the job that I think Khalil did a lot of that work at El Salvador, and Will has done a lot of that work at other events. So trying to share some of those responsibilities.
Nice. What have been some challenges so far, like with running events? Like anything interesting you can share, like funny anecdotes?
We've had a lot of good challenges. One of the ones I mentioned earlier is about how sometimes we make requests for changes to the road, and sometimes that backfires. Probably the biggest, outside of El Salvador, the biggest issue we had was in Cappadocia a few years ago. Cappadocia was a really nice course. Will went out there and filmed it, and there was a couple potholes on the road. One of them was really bad and needed to be fixed. And Will went in and labeled like 50 places that needed to be touched up on the road.
Yeah.
Now, my personal opinion is that was probably too much. There's a lot of cracks that, like, okay, whatever, it's a little tiny crack, you're not going to notice it. What the government said, I don't know what the government told their people, but they went wild. They basically gave them a truckload of asphalt, and they went every little, if it looked like a hole, they put asphalt on it. Yeah, they patched it. And for if you don't know, asphalt it's thick, right? It's not like this thin layer. And so they would put this real thin strip on a crack, and then like 5 feet later they put another real thin strip. But it's thick. It's an eighth of an inch or so thick. And so there was just, every 10 feet down the hill, there was this extra layer on top of the hill. And most of it, like I said, it was just, I thought we asked for 50 patches, and I thought that was too much. These guys patched like 200 places. They just went wild. And so we ended up, we got a shovel out and removed half of these patches. It was still pretty bad, and it definitely made the course challenging. That's for sure. So that was one thing that came up. The most recent one was El Salvador. El Salvador was absolutely amazing. I don't really want to go to it too much right now. It's a good thing to talk about it by itself. But what ended up happening, the challenge there was they came and they wanted to do a good job, and they did a fantastic job. But they ended up repaving the road. They slurry sealed it. Like a week before the event. Slurry seal it's not the worst thing you can do to a road for downhill skating, but it's
up there.
It's up there. And then they did it right before the event. If they'd done it a month before, it would have been better. Okay. Some people have asked about, well, what about next year? Well, the nice thing about a slurry seal is it, as cars drive on it, it wears it off, and not wears it off, it wears it down. So next year should be just fine. But it was just kind of sad because it was frustrating. because the road, there was nothing really wrong with the road. I had asked for two. There's two patches I wanted. There was a small pothole right at the start line, and I was like, if you guys can't do it, we'll just move the start line down, 10 meters or something. And then there was another section right in the apex of a turn that was kind of being underwashed, and so it was kind of collapsing. Was it the end of the world? They didn't fix it, but it would be definitely nicer, smoother, and much safer. So they actually dug that out and repaved it, and then they sorry sealed everything. And it was not something we expected. But now, now we know better. We know when we have a contract with a government, we'll just specify, hey, here's the things you can't do right before the event.
And how are you guys getting these opportunities to work with these governments? Is that like a process that the WGSF does? Is it the WDSC?
At this point, it's mostly the WDSC is doing most of the work to try to find our venues. We've joined an organization. I think you talked to Slim about this. We joined an organization. I can't even think of the name of it right now. And what this organization does is it matches venues with, I don't even quite say sports, but with sports, with events and stuff. Because what happens is you go out and build a big stadium. Let's say you build it for your football team or whatever, and they play for 3 or 4 months out of the year. So now you have your stadium empty for the other 8 months, or I don't know how long the football season normally is. So you want to make money off of it, right? So how do you do that? You go and find concerts or whatever. So that's what this organization does, is they try to match up venues with sports or other events. So we joined them a year ago, I guess, and unfortunately they're big. They have a couple conferences through the year, and their big one was the same time as our Turkey event this year. So none of us went. We sent a delegate to them, and this event is a little bit different than normal conventions. They actually set up meetings before the event, and so whether it's worth going or not. For a lot of people who follow our Instagram page, WDSC Instagram page, you'll have seen that we were nominated and we won Best Emerging Sport last year. So that's that organization that does that. And that's actually really good for us because now the entire organization knows about us. And so it's going to be, I don't want to say it's easier, but we have been getting people contacting us, and it's going to take a few years for it to really kind of come to fruition. But some of these things, it takes a long time to deal with. We were talking to a couple locations we thought we were going to run for this year, and then they came and said, okay, well, no, we're still interested maybe next year. The good thing about that is we're already starting to talk to organizations about next year's schedule. That's one of my goals, is to get to the point of where we're actually scheduled out 2 or 3 years. Maybe 2 or 3 years before we get to that point. But right now, we're going to announce our schedule at the end of this, hopefully at the end of this week. I think we've already said at the end of the week. We're still trying to finalize a couple pieces. The interesting thing about that, you asked about, what are some of the challenges. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have said, hey, this is our schedule. And then at the end of the year, a bunch of things changed, and it was just completely unknown what our schedule was going to be. And so it just took us a while to nail some of the stuff down. And so.
Yeah. I see. Well, that's nice. It seems like you guys are getting the ball rolling. I guess it's been a difficult couple of years since 2022, and now things are kind of picking up speed in a way.
2025. So I've been saying for the last 3 years, if we get a good solid season under us, it'll be great. But I should say the first year, 2022, we had a big issue. In 2023, we had a bunch of things cancel, and we had to move some stuff around. And 2024, we ended up with 3 events, and we ended up having to. Well, Isle of Man was going to be one of our events. We were going to start 2024. Everyone loved this. We did a couple sites visits. They loved it. It was great. And I went through. They're, we're going to do this, and we get to the last guy. He's the
Top guy.
Lieutenant Governor, I think he's the top guy, and he was like, "No, we got too many other events going on." And it was just, it was a big blow to us because this happened in like March. And so we ended up having to kind of reshuffle our schedule. And I think we moved our date, and we moved one of the dates to the same time as another event. We didn't have a choice. And so that year was okay. We had 3 good events, but 2025 hit, and I think we ended up, the only day we ended up moving was Utah, and that was because Utah has some summer stuff going on, and we wanted to run like right after Labor Day, because that would, the week after Labor Day, because it would be a week after Maryhill, and their summer events were still going on, so we had to wait till the end of September. So I think we made that change, but we did it early on in the season, and we hadn't announced the location yet anyways. So, but other than that, that was like the only big change I think we made, and I think it was our biggest and best year. It's going to be really hard to follow up this year. I don't think we're going to top it this year, but maybe next year.
Nah, don't say that. I'm sure it'll be great.
This year's going to be great. We've already got got some great plans, but we're kind of scaling back a little bit to focus more on each event and trying to make each event better. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. But yeah, I mean, 2025 was just an amazing year, in my opinion. It was the best year we've had. It's our biggest year we've had. I think people are starting to understand what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do just is we're trying to create like a professional league, essentially. My goal is I'll be happy if we can get the top 10 or 20 guys who are all earning enough money to make a comfortable living doing this.
That would be amazing.
And then just grow the sport and get other people involved and get more spectators involved, and more racers, and more events. And
so what can people at home, like someone watching this, whether they're an athlete competing or just home watching, what can they do to support you guys getting there?
Trying to get more friends involved, trying to get more friends involved in the viewership. That's really the big thing. What we're trying to do is grow the fan base. And as you grow the fan base, it's two main things happen. One is that's where your new blood comes from. Like you go look at any major sport and ask the top players how they got into the sport. They're like, oh, well, when I was 6 years old, I used to go watch the games, right? They all were fans when they were kids, every single one of them. And so our sport right now is sort of in a decline, and part of it is just because there's been a couple of reasons, but like I was accusing Concrete Wave of basically raising our sport to the next level for the longest time, because Concrete Wave was it was a physical magazine, and it was in every skate shop in the world. And so you had some random kid walking to a skate shop and saw the magazine there. Hey, this is cool, and he started getting into it. But today we don't have that. The only way you about the sport is if you stumble across it on YouTube. Right after COVID, our first event with Maryhill, we had 300 or 350 people. It was amazing, and a lot of new people, which I didn't expect. And I asked a bunch of them, how'd you get into this? Oh, we saw it on YouTube. Well, the thing is, you got to stumble on it YouTube. It's not like getting your face as like Concrete Wave was at the skate shop. So that's one step, is you build the fan base. And the other thing that happens though is if you build the fan base, is money comes in, because now you have something for you have a reason for sponsors to give you money. And everyone knows like the industry is struggling. There's almost no money involved. And so we need, and these events, and we run these events, are just insanely expensive. And there's, last year, a bunch of events canceled or was talking about canceling, and they got saved at the last minute, a bunch of events. And I was afraid of like, okay, great. the whole thing's going to die right as we're starting to get up over the top of the hill.
Yeah.
It's just these things are expensive. Our events, when we run our events, we put out more hay bale than a lot of people do, but it's we're spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on hay bale.
Wow.
You got paramedics and marshals and we have to pay for the road in a lot of places. And it's just the costs just add up. And then when you throw on the fact that we have a film crew and a media crew, and that's another 20 or 30 people that we have to deal with. And right now we're running these shoestring budget. We run with the least amount of people we can run with, and it's about half what we really want. And it just adds up, and we can't the event. The sport is not sustainable on skaters' entry fees, so we need to bring in external money, which is this outside money, which is what we're trying to do, and this is what happens when you build the fan base and you grow the fan base, and we're getting there. We're working on it. I mean, that's mainly the goal of WDSC. Our Instagram and Facebook is we have 150,000 followers or something like that. We get the broadcast. We do 2 half-hour shows out from each event, plus a season wrap up at the end of the season. And the broadcasters are loving this stuff. They keep asking when the next one's coming in, and that gets thrown around the world. I've never actually seen it, but a lot of people have seen it in bars and stuff. And a friend of mine, he's constantly getting people he doesn't even know sending him photos of their TV. Hey, I saw you on TV.
Nice.
Solomon's told you the story about Ohio Will Company, where the owner was like in a bar. Yeah, Josh was in a bar and saw it on. He saw it on the screen. Like, he didn't even know about us at the time. And so we're getting there. But it's a long, slow uphill battle.
Yeah. Because it's so expensive, and how, this is a bummer question, I apologize, but how sustainable is it? Because there's a couple of things. There's energy, there's money, there's all the mental stuff. Like, how sustainable
without outside money, it's not sustainable. It just isn't. We can barely put together an event with just rider entry fees, not including, like, you go to almost any event today, and they're barely scraping by, and they may be pocketing $1,000 or something, which is for the amount of effort that the organizer puts into it is just insane. And so, and it's just getting more and more expensive. I mean, I'm hearing in hay bales in California are like $20 plus each.
That's insane.
It's and we put. I don't think we're ever going to top this number, but we had almost 20,000 hay bales in El Salvador, which is just to be insane. But we're typically trying to do 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 bales, and 5,000 bales at $20 each is
a lot of money.
Yeah, and so fortunately we haven't hit that yet, but it gets expensive. And so then, like I said, you throw on top of the fact that we're doing this film crew. We have equipment we have to ship around the world. We have you got people you gotta pay. You gotta fly them out to places. And I don't think people understand just like how many people are involved. It's not enough. Like, we need more people. We want to bring more cameras. We want to bring more people to do interviews and just make the experience better. Well, that's all money. It's all time and money, right? And so we have to bring in either some sponsorship, or like one of the things that we're doing is we're going to these venues that will actually pay us to come in. Which is one of the reasons why we've been struggling to find events and work with. And the thing is, there is a lot of money out there. There's a lot of tourism money where, in fact, this is what happened with El Salvador. They're trying to improve their image. but they're trying to turn themselves into a tourism destination. So, they brought us down based on the tourism budget. But a lot of places will have this tourism money. A lot of the tourism money comes when you stay at a hotel, you pay a tax, and that tax goes into this tourism budget, and that tourism, they use this money to either advertise their location, or they bring in events like us that we're trying to bring in more spectators, which is another thing. Get back to the point about more spectators. Right now we go into a location with 100 or 200 people, and that's not a lot when you're looking at for the tourism budget. Now we do spend we've been doing some we look at how much time we spend there, and the athletes spend there, and we have a lot of people say, I spend an extra week there, which is great. This is what the tourism board is looking for. But one of these days we're going to get to the point of where we'll have spectators who are like, I went there so I can watch this event. And that's when things start going crazy. And the tourism board, it gets really happy, and we get more money to put on these events.
Yeah. Maybe something I should ask Selim is to have like a Race to Survive style documentary series. Because they already have the media, they already have the stuff. I think potentially something could be worked out. Because I know people are starving for more WDSC content. So maybe some behind the scenes of athletes training could be cool.
Yeah, this is one of the things we've been pushing for. It's one of the things I've been pushing for. Like, look, you gotta have a narrative. You have to have narratives. You need to have your, and we're starting to get there, but you got to have your like one of the reasons the Olympics are so popular is you have the countries going at each other, right? And you have these different narratives, and I don't know if you've been watching much of the Winter Olympics, and I don't know how much this was because this person, she was an American, but Lindsey Vonn with her comeback, like that was huge. And then then she crashes, and it's just devastating. But it's just those storylines is what drive some of these interesting sport. And so, but we need that behind the scenes. And what's worse with our sport is you put the helmet on, and you're now a faceless person, right? It's like so we need to see what's behind the helmet, and we need to some of our best videos. One of our biggest videos when we first started was talking a couple setup videos. We were just talking to some of the riders, which blew me away. It's what people want, but it's again, it's time and money. It's have the resources, have the extra people there to generate the content, and we're working on it. We're trying. We've got some ideas for this year, and we'll slowly grow it, and try to get content out there, more behind the scenes stuff. And we did a lot of that in El Salvador. Probably did a little bit too much of it, to be honest. But
nice, man. Earlier you mentioned that something about the WGSF. It's you and Will. Is it a democratic organization, or what's the situation there?
And to be honest, it probably will never really be. Although as we grow, we may change the structure a little bit. When I first got into the sport, IJSA was just getting started, and I worked with Marcus Riedema, who was the president of IJSA for the whole time that he was there. He was my travel partner, and he was basically a dictator, right? He was like, I'm going to do it this way. He listened to the writers, but he was the one who made all the decisions. And then IDF came along, and we got to be democratic. It's like, look, you can't run a sports federation being democratic. You can't. You have to listen to the writers, but someone's got to make the hard decisions. And I think it was one of the problems that AF had was there's too many chiefs, and there was no one to come along and say, hey, we're going to do it this way. So from that point of view, right now WGSF is Will and I. We basically have the voting rights for this, but we're bringing, like I said, we're starting to bring in more people into as a crew, and we also have a writers rep group. We have basically a couple writers from each different sport that we talk to on a constant basis. to get feedback from them. Which, by the way, if anybody out there has any issues with anything we do, and you don't want to talk to us, like you're afraid to talk to us, talk to them. That's their whole point of them, to kind of get the feel for what the writers are thinking and saying and doing. And we listen to them, right? Like we've made changes, and I don't know if you remember or heard what happened last year with the women's championship, but that was all driven by the women. Like we
great. Yeah.
We had a meeting with them, and we talked things over, and we changed our mind based on what they wanted. So it's not exactly democratic, but we'll definitely listen, right? It's not like our way or the highway, and that's it. One of the other things that we're trying to do, and again, this is just hard, but we want to build up, a federation is a federation of organizations, and we want to try to build up organizations in every country and have a true federation. But that's just a long process, and with just Will and I, it's difficult. Especially we're the majority of our focus right now is on WDSCs, trying to get that up and running and get it sustainable, so then we can start putting our effort into other things that involve the sport. Like one of the things that I'm actually going to start working on this year is one of my goals in life is to have a Grom series.
Nice. Yeah.
Something that's under 18 only. Really short courses. Something where they wear a half shell helmet and maybe slide gloves, and a couple 100-meter courses, and somewhere where they can walk back up, so you can run the event for $200 or something, and you do something like that, and you can have 10,000 races around the world, right? And get these kids into it, and you get to the point of where only one kid out of 100 wants to move on, and all of a sudden you got some people want to race, right? So
on that question, what do you think has been like the bottleneck for growing our sport? Because you talked about spectators, other people say equipment's too expensive,
look, for a broke skater, equipment's too expensive. But if you look at racing, we're probably the cheapest racing you can do. Skiing is skiing's $100 a day plus first. The equipment isn't too expensive, but it's probably on par with our stuff. I think the expensive part in our sport is the wheels, and if you really want to be competitive, you need to have brand new wheels all the time, that's just you can't do that on a broke budget. But the reality is unless you're like running, this is one of the cheapest racing that you can do. But what's the bottleneck? The bottleneck is really it's places to practice. This has been the number one complaint since day one, since I've been involved in it. There's nowhere to go safely, and it's illegal in a lot of places to ride on an open road, and so that's the problem. And as we grow the sport, one of the things that we need to do, and in fact, this is another thing that I've been talking to people about, and I want to do at our events, is start having taster days. Get something set up. But the problem is you need a local organizer, you need a local person to work on this. But what I want to do at our events is have a little hill, maybe it's meters long, where anybody can come and skate down the hill. We'll have skateboards and helmets there and slide gloves, and they can test it out. The problem is it's not something that I can do. I need to get somebody else to do it, because what we need to happen is when we leave, those guys need to have somebody to go back to, because otherwise I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, we'll be back in a year. That's not going to work. So it's that side of things, and there's a lot of grassroots. I mean, I remember when I first got started in this, and I know so Motion Board Shop is my local board shop, and he does this a little bit. I haven't talked to him in a while, but when I first got started, we had a local board shop that would do meetups every weekend, and they go ride in the parking lot, right? that's what you need. You need to have a way for people to kind of learn the sport, getting all the gear and going someplace. But it's hard. And learning in a parking lot. Like, look, the first time I rode, I went to a local high school. It had a slope. I rode my board down. Hey, this is great. And then I met up with Curtis Head and some other X Game losers, and the hill was like, it was all of a sudden it was like this.
Yeah.
But it felt like that. And I got on it, and all of a sudden I get the speed wobbles that I wasn't getting at 10 miles an hour in my local parking lot. So, there's these where, you need to have the ability to learn, to work with somebody, and that's just not there. And it's there a little bit, but not as much as it should be. So it's locations to safely practice, and it's people to learn from. And it's the problem is like there's a bunch of little things and they all up, and we're all, none of it exists. And so you gotta build it up.
And it seems like you guys are doing and taking the steps to sort of fix that. And I actually did want to pass on that exact same suggestion to Selim, to have like sort of a taster at the event, etc. Just get people to try it. I think that would be pretty cool.
Well, so one of the things we're doing now, like I know you heard a little bit about El Salvador. You've been talking to some of the riders. That's been our best event so far, and that's what we want to gravitate towards, where we have like events. We have we have athlete tents, and we have these vendor villages, and you have a destination for the spectators. Well, once you do that, once you start bringing in spectators, now it's much easier for us to say, oh, well, let's add on, like in El Salvador, we had a mini ramp. So the next step is to say, hey, let's find a hill that's like we could walk to. And there was a couple spots where we could have done it. The problem is trying to do it safely. And that's part of the issue too, is like you need to have this hill that's long enough and steep enough that you can do this. But as we build these villages, we can now start expanding out and providing some of these other things. But like I said, in this particular instance, we need to work with somebody local to keep that going after we leave.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
So I had some questions to ask you about the rule book implementation at races and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. All the other stuff we've been talking about has been far more exciting. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, like how is the rule book implemented? One question I do have is, if there's a crash, if there was like protected position or whatever, but the person who got crashed out, who had protected position, doesn't say anything about it, does it get implemented, or does it just kind of move on? Yeah.
So let's start. That's a really good question. Protected position is a little understood rule. And to be perfectly honest, I hated it. When I first wrote our rule book, I left it out. The protected position was one of the things that was implemented by IDF, and I didn't like it. And then I watched the World Skate Games in Argentina, and one of the things that I like to do is have our finish line near a turn, and that makes that turn very exciting. And that's what Argentina did. The finish line was, 50 meters after the exit of the turn, and it was a hard 90-degree turn. You're probably coming in at most speed of probably the fastest portion of the course. And they had put up the line where the protected position was supposed to start, and it was in the wrong spot. The rule is it's supposed to start at the approach to the turn, and they had it like right where the turn started, not the approach. But everybody, what happened was if they were in second place, or especially if they're in third place and you're trying to advance, they would make what we call a hero move, right? You just dive in on the inside and hope you can make it. And we just had a ton of crashes, and that's what this rule was trying to prevent, is to stop that from happening. And unfortunately, it was they didn't do it correctly. We had one incident. And the whole reason the rule was designed is
Yeah.
You're gonna come down. You're gonna start on the outside. You're gonna hit the inside of the apex and drift out to the outside. That's the fastest way through this turn.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say you're going in 60 miles an hour and it's a 30-mile-an-hour turn. You got to slow down to 30 to make this turn.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is if you're in the lead, with a luge, you sit up to brake, and the guy who's right behind him is like, "Oh, I'll brake later," which is possible. If you can brake in a shorter amount of time, then you can pull that move off.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is if you don't brake enough, then you kind of beat the guy to the turn, but you're just out of control because it was a 30-mile turn and you're doing 40. Yeah. That's the only way you can get around him. And so what ends up happening is he's coming in this way, and you just kind of do this thing where you just hit him and just take him out. Well, that happened in Argentina. The guy's in the lead. He sat up to brake, and the other guy tried to go around him and takes him out. And because the incident happened like before the protected position, like it was count. Dumb because the whole point of that rule was to prevent that particular situation. So anyways, let me get back to the protected position. The rule is if an incident happens, then you if the protest is upheld, which means that the person who protested won the protest, then their positions are locked. And a lot of people misunderstand that. They think that there's nothing really special about protected position. If you take somebody out, you're going to get DQ'd, whether you're on this side of the protected position line or that side of the protected position line. The difference is if you're higher up on the hill, and you were in first place and you get taken out and you finish in third, you're going to finish in third. But if it's after protected position, if you're in first place and you get taken out and you win the protest, then you keep that first place position.
I see.
And I think a lot of people misunderstand that. There's been a request to mark the position on the road. So we've been doing that at the request, but it shouldn't matter. Now, what it does matter to a certain extent is, do I protest? If I got taken out on the top half of the course, and the guy who took me out finished fourth, it's not worth me protesting because nothing's going to change. But if I'm at the bottom, I got taken out, I'm in first place, then yeah, it's worth it for me to protest. So that's really the only reason you need to know where the protest line is.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to change that. We're going to bring somebody in. We're going to do this year. We're trying to do that this year to bring somebody in who's going to be watching the videos. He's going to be, now that we're actually filming most of the course, he's going to watch the course and he's going to make a decision on whether or not you're DQ'd without you having actual protest.
So if the riders don't protest, right? Like if the person who got taken out doesn't say anything, do they just end up in the positions they cross the line in, or is protected position enforced regardless?
So today, if no one protests, nothing changes.
Okay.
And part of the reason is that until a few years ago, we had no idea what was happening, right? Because it's not filmed. We don't see what's happening higher up at the course. This year in Austria, for a really good example, down at the finish line, but I was 25 meters from the turn. I saw nothing had happened in the turn because it was a hard hairpin. I'm sitting here and these guys are coming this way. They're coming this way, and then they come around, and all the crashes happened out of my line of sight. So I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
So I had no internet access, so I couldn't even watch the videos. I had to rely on the writer's testimony to determine, or their determined what happened.
Yeah.
And that's been historically, that's how it's always worked. So that's why you had to protest. If you don't protest, like we don't even know the crash happened, right? Like, we don't even know that. And so that's why you had to protest. But now that we're starting to film everything, I don't think it's going to happen in the next year or two, but we want to, even the POV footage, we want to get live footage from. And so that at that point, all of our footage is available immediately. Before you even get down to the bottom of the hill, we should be able to determine whether or not an incident occurred. And now we're getting to the point of like we're in any other sport. Like there's very few other sports where you go and say, hey, this guy committed a foul, right? You have a referee that calls that.
Yeah.
Now, as a coach, you can go and say, hey, you missed this call, and maybe you can lodge a protest, and so we'll always have that situation where someone's going to believe that something happened, and maybe it did or it didn't. But we want to get to that position where we're making the call, and you don't have to make any.
I see.
Now,
yeah.
Once that happens, protector position will still come into play, because the whole point behind the position really was to protect that number one rider or the number two rider from getting taken out from behind.
Yeah.
Because we're racing 4 up or 6 up, there's this, if it's a 2-man race, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's if that guy's DQ'd, you're advancing. But when it's a 4-man race, if you DQ one person, and if you finish 3rd or 4th and you DQ somebody, you're finishing 3rd. And so, outside of the finals, everybody wants to advance. And so, we have the situation where it's kind of frustrating if you get taken out because you don't want to advance. So that's the main reason why the protected position is there, is to stop those hero moves, because the hero moves don't happen as much higher up. I mean, mistakes happen and people get taken out, but in the first turn, you don't dive in and say, well, this is my only shot. It's just when you get down to that final turn, that's it. Like,
that's it.
If you both make it through the turn, like, unless you can pick up with more speed coming out, you're done. So it's in that turn is where you have to make your move. And so we're trying to limit that, because look, when a crash happens, the chance of you getting hurt goes up, so we're trying to prevent crashes. I mean, I get everybody likes crashes, and that's why they watch what we do, but we're trying to minimize those crashes. So if we can minimize people from trying to make the hero move, and then punish them if they do, and then reward the person who didn't do anything wrong, that's sort of the whole goal of it.
Nice. Are there any more changes to the rule book for 2026, 2027?
We've got a few minor rule changes. Trying to think of anything that's really major as far as racing goes. Like we're going to make some rule changes around. We had this incident in El Salvador where the problem with El Salvador was it rained. It wasn't supposed to rain, and it rained. And it was just it was such a mild rain and it was really warm out, so it dried pretty quickly. But you're still in the rainforest. There's tree coverage. On top of that, we discussed that we had this. They just repaved the road, and when you repave a road and then it rains, it kind of draws some of the oil up, and so now it's even slicker. And because it was brand new pavement, the wet patches were hard to. It was hard to tell if it was wet or not. So we had this situation where it rained early on, and like before the riders even got back to the top, it was dry. And so we're like, oh, good, let's go. We start racing, and then it rained again. As the riders got to the top, it rained again. So you got to be kidding me. And again, it was just a light rain. It lasted like 2 minutes. I think I was out in the open. I didn't have a tent or anything, and I covered my computer up. And 2 minutes later, I got rid of the cover because it just stopped raining. And if you looked at the weather forecast, it was like less than a millimeter or 0.1 millimeter. Well, that's what we got, but it was enough to wet the course and cause this condition. And the problem is we waited like 2 hours before we made a decision. And so, we can't do that anymore. So we're making a rule change to. I don't think we're quite done with the rule yet, but we're making a rule change to limit the amount of time we have to make that decision. I think we're trying to limit ourselves. Once we get into this situation, we'll make a decision within like a half hour. And if we have the time, we'll wait. In Utah, we actually waited like 3 hours, and we ended up running the race, and because we had plenty of time to do it. In El Salvador, we were running out of time. Like we ended up, we finished the race. I had like 5 minutes. I had to get the results done. I went down to the parking lot because the village was 500 meters from the finish line. I walked down to the finish line, and it was dark. Like we got the race done The race that we finished, we got done right before it got dark. So we were running out of time. Who knows if it was going to rain again? That was the issue we had in Utah, was we thought it was going to rain again. So as soon as it stopped raining, we basically ran the race. Because historically speaking, we run the rain.
Mm-hmm.
But we rely on our drones to film the majority of the course. We can't have the drones run in the rain. So if it's pouring rain, we can't race. And so that was what happened in Park City. But anyways, that was one of the rule changes we're putting into place. I've added a rule change. I've added a couple of rule changes around using previous runs, previous rounds to determine the winner, as opposed to just relying on just the
qualifying.
Just on the qualifying. We're doing the same. We're going to do something similar for tie breaks, where we're going to look at if there's a tie break at a certain point, we're going to look at how many wins you've had in heats, and this will make each heat a little bit more, hopefully a little bit more competitive. There's a little bit less of like, hey, I could just back. It's each heat's going to be important. I think we haven't rule changes yet, but we'll probably make a few rule changes around inline. I've got a couple of people I'm talking to about that. I think there's a couple other minor changes, but those are the big ones that don't really affect in itself. I think the rules that we have right now, I think, are pretty. But there's always rule changes, and look, every sport, they make rule changes in the off season.
It's evolving, yeah.
Yeah.
How does the race timing work? This is a personal question for me, because I follow the sheet sometimes, so it's always interesting to see.
So not to change the subject, but I've been watching the Olympics, and downhill. The giant slalom is probably the closest thing that we have to downhill.
It's amazing.
And it's amazing what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. I'm gonna, after the Olympics, I'm gonna try to follow up on some people. But they're able to track the person all the way down the course. They have 7 sector times. We don't have any of that. So
not yet.
What we have,
not yet.
yeah. So we've been using the same system IDF uses. Started using. It's race results. It's a really good system. The original system, the cool thing about it is there's an active transponder that you wear on typically you wear it on your ankle. What used to happen is there was a machine at the top with an electric field. We put wires across the road, and it creates this electric field, and it can determine basically as your transponder goes to the electric field, there's a spike. The field gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it gets lower and lower and lower. And the computer figures out where that peak is, and that's supposed to be the center of the field, and that's your starting position. These transponders are designed to, there's a couple of ways you can run it, and one way is the transponder itself can store that time. And then the transponder, then you carry the transponder down the course, and at the bottom you have another field. The same thing happens, and it reads your start time and your finish time, and that's how you get your time. And the really cool thing about this system is you don't need connection with the start, and that's always, historically speaking, been a problem we've always had. You're in the mountains, you don't have line of sight. You got you have trees, and it's far. So we could, when I first started, we would run a wire all the way down the hill, and the wire was a mile long. So it's how long our course couldn't be any longer than that. Now we do the same thing with we do run a wire for the film guys, but the less work we have to do, the better and easier it is. So this system was really nice. This last year we have upgraded a little bit, and we now have a third timing point. And the way this system now works, 3 timing points, but the top timing point now tries to talk to the internet. And the second timing point talks to the first timing point, so it has to be within. They said 700 to 900 meters. I try to keep it closer than that to guarantee. I try to keep line of sight, and this is the section I call the whole shot. someone just asked me about that. Normally it's 75 meters. I play it by ear based on where I think the riders are going to stop kicking or stop pushing, and that's where I put what I call the whole shot. It turns out in every race it was about 75 meters except for one, or except for two, and both of them have to do with there was a turn there, so I put it right before the turn.
Yeah.
So the way that works is when you cross the whole shot, that time gets sent to the start time, and the start time then uploads it to the cloud if we have internet access. And then at the finish line, I have the race result system connected up to the, and it does, and it can read it gets the time and it figures it out from there. So that's if you log into the race results website, which I usually post somewhere, you can see some of the timing and stuff going on. If you're looking at the spreadsheet, that's all done by hand. I have the spreadsheet in there. I watch the riders come across. We've added these colored leggings, red and blue or red, green, blue, and yellow, which is their lane choice position. So red is the first choice. So I know who's wearing the red bib or the red cross at the finish line.
Yeah.
I put that in there, and we had an incident in Utah where I had the wrong people because they were wearing the wrong. Somehow they got the wrong colors on. I had actually wrote some code to do all that automatically, and it kind of worked, but it was it had too many flaws in it, so I stopped using it. But it's all manual right now, and it'll probably stay that way for a while.
Fair enough.
So that's how we do it today. I'm looking at trying to add 2 more timing points so we can do 2 split times. The problem there is in order for that to work, you have to have this internet access, and it's so hard to get internet access on some of these hills. So we've been using Starlinks and stuff, and it's hard to justify getting a Starlink just for the center of the course so we can have an extra time. And these split times are meaningless unless they're live. As a rider, it'd be kind of nice to know, I was this fast corner, but it's really for the spectators to know. Like I said, I've been enjoying watching the downhill skiing, but because of all the data that they're showing, that it makes it impressive. So
it's good.
I'd love to get to that point at some point. So one of these days.
Fingers crossed, man, because they have like the speed. The speed is so cool to see. They have the times and everything. Like,
they have a map, and then they can show you where on the map it is, and then they have the sector times. They have the time that's going, and it's red or green depending on if you're ahead or not. Like it's amazing. It makes it much more fun to watch. We're actually talking to a timing company. We're talking to some timing company that we may improve things this year, but we'll see. It's time consuming. It's expensive. It's another layer of cost, and so we're working on it. And hopefully, as we'll get there. It'll probably be another couple of years before we really get to what we want to do. But
we'll get there. And finally, is there something you maybe wanted to mention, maybe wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on, or no?
I'm sure there's a lot of things I can mention and talk about, but I think one of the things I kind of want to reiterate is we kind of touched on this, but we didn't really talk about it. There's a separation between WDSF and WDSC. And very few people understand it or even know about it. Some people don't even know we exist, and that's fine. Like WDSC is that's what's front and center, and that's what everyone sees, and that's fine. But the thing to understand is essentially Salam runs WDSC. That's like I said, that's sort of like F1. That's it's the series. It's he's the one making a lot of the deals with some of the venues we're working with, and to be perfectly honest, I think that this year's schedule is going to be really good. But we are talking to some venues where the venues are a little bit less, not as good as some of the courses we've had in the past. The issue is the money's there. Going forward, we want to try to do some more urban courses.
Yeah.
We're talking to one city right now, which I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think the course is quite good enough. But
Yeah.
the problem is as you do that, you're going to make some compromises on like it's hard to find a perfect course that's in the middle of the city. But having the chance to have 100,000 spectators, like
Yeah.
we're going to take it.
Yeah.
It's an sort of goal. Now, we don't want to leave behind some of these, what we call the mountain courses. We're always going to have a few mountain courses. And like El Salvador, I think, is a good example. When we first started in El Salvador, there all week we were talking about, maybe we'll run this in San Salvador is on the side of a hill, side of a volcano. So we talked about it. The government we were working with, they were behind it. They're like, oh yeah, we can do this in the city, and we'll have lots of spectators. And at the end of the week, they were like, no, you know what? This is probably the best place to do it. We can close the road down. We'll work on making it more spectator friendly next year to get more spectators out here. But the traffic in San Salvador is just insane. We can't close the roads down. So, so we're always going to have those kind of hills, but we want to have some more urban courses. But anyways, back to my point. WDSF, it's a federation. We're the rule body. We run the point series. If there's anything related to rules, you come to Will and I, WDSF. WDSC, it's the marketing end. They're the ones picking the venues. They're the ones driving all the media behind WDSC. And I mean, like, again, it's F1 and FIA. You don't hear anything about FIA. No one even knows it exists. And so it's fine. But that's the demarcation. And we're going to try over the next few years. We're still around in a couple of years. We are going to try to bring in some more series. Like I said, we really want to do a Grand Series, and the QS Series is going to get bigger. And as it gets bigger, we have more solo events. We'll stop doing these double events that we do today. So we'll be the CT events will be CT events only, and QS events will be separate QS events. And it's possible at that point, once we kind of get that up and running and have a good solid series, maybe we start a series beneath the QS events. One thing we kind of touched on earlier as well is how about growing this. We're kind of working from top down. We also need grassroots people working from the bottom up. These are both valid ways to grow the sport. We're just we're choosing to go this way and work our way down. And that's sort of what we're doing. So like I said, once we get the QS series up and running and a holiday with 20 or 30 or 50 races, then we can get a layer underneath the QS series. And it grows. And it's supposed to be like this pyramid where each series below has more events. But it's all pipe dream and 5-10 years in the making.
We can make it work, man. We can make it work. Someone's got to take the first step. You guys have taken the first step, and you're doing it well. So I think a lot of others would believe in the dream and want to follow. So
that's my goal, and hopefully we can get it there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today, Chris. That was fantastic. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah. All right. Okay.